Good evening, folks. Look what we've got here. Now, just a quick video really. I wanted to just check out this Spirit. It's by Steinberger, because this is the second one I've had in just recently. The first one is over there getting its first layers coats of satin nitro on it. So it's going home for a light sanding, 1500 grit wet sanding, just to flat out any bits of dust and stuff, and then it will get a final coat or two. But interestingly, having two of these style guitars in a row, it's just quite an interesting thing for me, because I've had some people ask online, you know, what the hell is wrong with these things? Why would you change this bridge over, this Steinberger bridge, for a Chinese bridge? And as you can see, I've got one here, this one here that Lawrence very kindly donated to me for a future build of some sort. Sorry. And I can show you, well, I think you've seen this before, but it's an interesting thing. And then there's a slightly more modern version of it here with more modern saddles, but actually they don't really, well, I'm not sure they do much different from the other ones, but a little bit better having these kinds of very finely machined things. A different set of pickup options and stuff here, or different switch anyway, compared to the Hohner, which is the one that's in that box over there, Lawrence's one. But so having done Lawrence's, Bob asked me would I do this one for him, and he's kind of said in the same way. So I think, well, you know, as a provider of services, of course I can do something in the same way. And I was very clear with Lawrence why he wanted a particular treatment of that guitar. It's been stripped back to wood. It's been, did we refret it? I can't even remember now. Yes, it's refretted, stripped back to wood, and built up again, and a new bridge put in having filled the cavity in here. So the new bridge is one of those Chinese ones that sticks on the top. There's nothing sticking out there, so it's got more, you can rest this part against your leg without bits like this sticking into you. Anyway, but you know, I've quizzed Lawrence in a very focused way about, you know, why he wanted this changed over, and I was very clear with him about the fact that the bridge I'm talking about, which I don't have one sitting around here, do I? No, I've used it. Oh, hang on, I do have one sitting around here. It lives in here. I think it's slightly in bits now. Well, let's leave it there. Anyway, yeah, so I've got one here, but it sits up on top of here, and you tune it from above, not from there. Anyway, yeah, having chatted to him about it, it's very clear that why he wanted the tremolo gone. The first reason is that he didn't like the way it stuck into him. He didn't like the fact that when he touched it, it seemed to go out of tune. There's play in both types, well, both these models. There's the same play here in these, I don't know if you can see it, in these doofers. Doofus. Anyway, just doesn't feel massively something or other confidence inspiring. And Lawrence on the other one, Hohner, was finding he just didn't need it, and it was just a thing that was in his way, basically. But he loved the guitar because he'd had it since he was a kid or a youngster, and so it was a very special first guitar. And there's a little slim travel-y guitar thing, that Hohner, same as this. You know, it's a great little lump of travel guitar, very compact, and of course it has its fabulous little armrest, which means you can play it sitting on your leg, or rest it on your leg. Anyway, so I was clear about that for Lawrence, and then when Bob asked me to take a look at this one, or do the same to this one, I just double checked today. I wanted to make sure why, you know, he really wanted this gone, not fixed. I certainly knew that Lawrence didn't want it fixed or made more stable. He wanted it gone. In the meantime, but after working with Lawrence's, I was given a good link to a German guy who makes replacement posts for this, because apparently on these the originals can bend forward. Now I actually don't see any evidence of that on these here, nor any major damage, or a little bit of damage to the edge of the blade thing here. I don't know if you can see. Where are we? There. A little bit of wear, but lighting's not so great. I don't think there's anything on there that you wouldn't expect. It's a bit grubby, a little bit, you know, a little bit of wear on the front edge. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to replace them. Now, Lawrence's was an old guitar, as you can tell by the grime here. I haven't done anything to this to clean it up yet, but I did obviously think, well, shall I reuse it? And it occurs to me that I'll probably buy the new faces and posts. I think the faces are part of the kit. I'll double check, but certainly the posts are, I think it's €30 for 2 and postage. So, you know, if I'm going to reuse that, which I was planning to do, then it makes sense to do. This one, Bob's one, the Steinberger, is a newer one, so I doubt it would have any wear at all on this, or it shouldn't have. But generally speaking, although the guy who makes the replacement posts makes them, and they fit both this R trem and another one B trem, I can't remember now. But anyway, it fits both of those types. The other type of trem, not this one, had the worst problem, so he made it for that one, but they also fit this one, is the whole point. But again, nothing worth, there's no need to change it. So I went back to Bob and said, can you just let me know why exactly is it that you don't want this tremolo in here? And he said very much the same as Lawrence, which is he doesn't use it, he doesn't like the way it sticks into him here, and more than anything else, he wants this guitar to be able to sit down and play on his lap or on his knee, on his thigh, resting there, and doesn't use a tremolo, and hasn't had great experience with it staying in tune. But also the fact that this arrangement on both guitars, this bridge requires ball-end strings to work. It's a very cute little tray. A cute little tray design, so that when you, it's impossible to do this one-handed, but when you dial out the little tray, you see, you put the ball in there, and then you pull it back in, and that's what pulls it in to tune it. Nice unit, but then you come up this end, and the way that both Hohner and Steinberger have done it, you suddenly find you've got to use a ball end at this end. There's no downward, at least I don't think there is under there. No, there's no downward fitting grub screws to hold it. So this guitar, although it's only about 350 max new, this sort of condemns you to expensive double ball end strings, which doesn't give you an awful lot of choice in manufacturers, and it's expensive. Which is, you know, another reason, pretty good reason why if somebody wants to just play this as a travel-y type guitar, you know, you don't want to be condemned to expensive double ball end strings. Anyway, so having a bit of a play around with this today, what I discovered about it is that my impression of it is that it actually seems to stay in tune pretty well. And I've got a tuner out here ready for a bit of going over and see how well it stays in tune. The first thing, if you're ever working with a guitar like this, or you've got one and you're struggling with the balancing the tremolo or any of that sort of stuff, you've got to, the first thing I beg you to do above all other things is get the slack stretched out of the strings. If you don't do that, it will absolutely not stay in tune, and you'll drive yourself mad trying to get it to stay in tune, and you'll blame the detuning most often on the guitar itself, which it's not its fault. So the way this works is really clever. Well, it's quite clever. So here's how I did it. Some people, I think, get confused and try and balance it up in equilibrium. You've got a spring under here that pulls like your, well, slightly different, but it applies pull a bit like your Strat strings do. Not in the same direction, but it applies pull. And then you've got strings pulling that way. And the idea is at some point you've got to get an equilibrium of the two. And then when it sits in equilibrium, you've got a bit of backwards and a bit of forwards. So the way I did this to keep it simple was I first of all locked, there's a little locking key in here, I locked the tremolo in place, and as far as I know, there's only one position on this whole thing you can lock it in place. And once you've locked it in place, once it's locked in place, it's a hardtail. So then I tuned it up as a hardtail. Then I undid the lock, and as it happened, it went boing downwards because the pull of the spring was much bigger than the pull of the strings. So it went down backwards, but it also put the strings way out of tune, increasing them in pitch. But that was okay, because then what I did was I just dialed using the strength of the spring adjuster. I just turned this until my E string became E again. And once that happened, it's been perfectly in balance ever since. So it's really simple. What I've got is a fixed amount of backward movement, but actually that's pretty as much as you'd need. So it's got, you know, it has one position to lock it in, but I think it sort of locks it in line first of all, and then after that you get it pretty much close to being back in line. So you once you've tuned it and you release the lock, it tends to fall backwards, or it will fall the other way if you've hardly got any compression on the spring. But you go whichever way brings your note back to E, whatever tuning you use, but in this case it's standard E. And then it'll move to the point where you're back in tune, and that's your playing point. Now, having done that, it appears to be mostly very stable, which is quite a good thing to be able to find out, because I mean, I'm partly a bit of self-interest here, because I obviously want to use this type of thing for my own purposes. Let's just... Now, it's a bit of a sharp sound. I haven't really gone looking for any better sounds, because I'm mostly looking at the tuning here. And also the practicality of actually using this while you're playing it. I'm just making sure it's on the strap properly. It's not only a cheap strap. So what we got here is in the standing position, it's very slightly sharp of E. Let's try it on I'll put it in the bridge position. Slightly sharp of E. So what I want to do is try and wrong way. Tune it to E. B's on. G is flat. Now, as soon as you grab it to tune it, you make the tuning go wrong. Hear that? That's before I even tune it. So you've got to be ready to tune it, let go. Now that's a tiny bit sharp. Here we go. That's because it's impossible to tune this without manipulating the whole thing. It's close. It's good. Flat. Okay. Now we don't have anything but the 5-position switch. So the idea would be just to bend it the hell out of here. Interestingly. Now how about that? That's gone quiet. What happened there? Position is feeble. B's flat, G's okay, B's okay, A's flat, E's okay. So there's a bit of going off there. Let's just turn it off for a minute. So it has wandered a tiny bit. I don't know whether that's a bit of string slack still, but generally speaking, that's no worse than any other guitar with a tremolo so far. I mean, it's not perfect. Let's just sorry, it's not a very good view, but I'm just gonna have a little look, see if I can bend these. Oops, of course I can bend that out of tune. Yeah, and then you touch this with your leg and it's all over the place, of course, unless you've got it locked down. Now I'm going to give it a bit of a pull. Yeah, I think we've got some more slack, so I think this is better than we would think. But it does go to show that the secret of this is, as with any guitar, it's getting this slack out of here. I'm not doing it the correct way, of course. Right now I'm just yanking it. Yeah, way flat. So that's mostly down to slack in the string. So I think that's a pretty good thing. So, you know, I'm not unhappy with that performance, knowing that it's gone out of tune a little bit, but I would say that's almost entirely because the slack is still in the strings. Well, the kind of verdict here really is still the same. We're going to take this bridge off and we're going to strip it back, and how we refinish it is going to really come down to what kind of wood is underneath here. So the hardest bit of all of this is stripping it out. It really is. The frets are perfectly good. The 0 fret has some notching, which I think if we just undo these now, we're now allowed to undo these. Everything else, frets up here are good. Let's take off the thing. I'll show you the little bits undoing, the little tray bits. There you are. Let's see. So out they come. The access to these, you can see that you have to get a long way under here. So whether or not it's even feasible to get away without having this cutaway at the back, including this big tensioning knob, I don't really know how we're going to do that on another build. I'm trying to be clever, and also it's quite difficult to get to this. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm trying to get to, I can't get to that while it's pulling back. Now it's pulling back because the strings are undone. I suppose I could undo the pull of the strings. Oops, I've undone it right to the end. So yeah, it's a difficult access. They feel a little bit better to grab with the fingers than the cheap Chinese one that I've got, but in a way that one's I've never intended to use that bridge with just the fingers, so I use a little tuning knob, which sounds like a hassle, but funnily enough, because the tuning stability is so incredible, once you've done the full stretching, then I rarely have to adjust it. So the fact that it's a little bit fiddlier to tune, although I actually didn't find that easy to tune at all with the tremolo doing its thing. Yeah, so despite being a little bit technically harder to tune, it's actually completely livable with, in my experience, because of the relatively small amount of tuning up you have to do. So the challenge of this guitar, I mean, really all I'm about with this is to I'm going to strip it all down, and then we're going to get at the whole business. So I think we just better get started, because I've got kind of planned a weekend to strip it all back. So the first thing I'm going to do is undo these two screws on the end here and take the headpiece off, and I'm going to be very careful with my grip of this. I'm going to make sure whatever screwdriver I use is going to fit really nicely, and I don't think it's going to be this one. So these screws are the only point of hold of this headpiece. And if you think about it, the headpiece is holding the entire loading of all these strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it comes out now in a straight line as I spin it. I don't want it wobbling or leaning once it's moving. I want to keep it in this straight line. These are not hugely substantial screws, and they're going into end grain, so they're a little bit on the small side. And that's all that holds it on, along with some pull, obviously, of the strings. So the purpose of these screws is to keep the thing on the end, but stop it kind of rotating around the end, which is where the string force is trying to take it. Seems to work, although having said that, it's as it stands with this bridge, it's not my favourite kind of headpiece because it doesn't have any, it doesn't free you up to use single ball end strings. So if you have a look at it, let's take a closer look in zoomification. Sorry about that. So where are we? Oh yeah, there we are. I was trying to look through the phone as well, which is not easy. So a very simple design. Got a fly in here. Go away. Just because my body heat has come into the workshop. It's the olden days speaking. So I'm just going to lift up this little rubber strap. It's quite a clever little way of keeping the strings in place while you go down to the other end so they don't just flop off. So that goes in there, obviously, and then it comes up a very small amount to the 0 fret. So it's a very small break angle. I think two things about these Hohner stroke Steinberger headpieces is both of them do something slightly wrong. First of all, if you, well, I suppose they don't think so because they don't really plan for you to use it with regular strings, but if you get an adapter headpiece that will take regular strings, and you can buy them and they have a grub screw in here and then it clamps the string. But the problem is on a lot of strings is by the time well actually, no, let me think. If I leave this the way it is, I'm trying to say, and we fit a different kind of bridge where we can use the cut in so the ball stays here in future, which we plan to, the other kinds of strings we use, we have to be very careful because some of them, like the Dario, have a much longer wound piece on there. And the danger is, and if you can see, let's try and simulate it, the danger is when that piece of wound string sits up on there because you don't get a proper note. Okay, so that's what we don't want. So we may still be kept to a small-ish range of strings. Now, as you can just see here now, we have got some wear on here. It's not terrible, but even that, I can feel it as I run over it, little clicks. Even that tiny amount of clicking results in the strings sort of ticking when you do bends down here from side to side. It's a pity. It's hard to catch the light on here at the moment. Yeah, you're probably in the dark shadow. You see the little, not on the bass one there, not on the E, but on the, see on the D and the G mostly. So that is the result of them sitting under load 24 hours a day. Now, Bob said to me, I think these are stainless steel frets. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether the 0 fret is, they don't look entirely stainless steel to me, but I could be wrong. There is something else on the end here that you might also notice if I zoom in. If I try and see the light glinting off that. Look at that. That's got some glue build up there. It's quite noticeable from over here, but nothing show-stopping. This is a slightly better end piece than the Hohner one. The Hohner had two badly placed screws, but that's not ideal there. Look at that, that screw goes into the split, the laminate or multi-part neck. And it's funny how that one doesn't and that one does. And yet you'd think that would be equidistant, wouldn't you? But it's not. So one's gone right in on the line. Anyway, so that's just a I guess they don't really mind us because it's not intended to be seen, and obviously with a solid black colour, you're not intended to see it from this end of things either. So, the question I've got is how big or small this 0 fret material is. I'll check it with a blade. If they're all the same size, I would not see a gap, and there is a little tiny gap in the middle one telling me that the 0 fret is a fraction taller. It's what you expect. It has a bit of leeway in there for gently getting rid of this, where it's so small and we can get rid of it. But being a new guitar, it will happen again. It's happened with hardly any playing and very little. I don't know how new it is. I think it's very underplayed. So the thing about notching here is it isn't really to do with playing, it's to do with just sitting. So it'll become notched just by sitting there. So you might never have played it and it's sat in its case, but it will notch just by sitting there. Anyway, so we're going to take everything apart. I was just one thing I wanted to do. Actually, maybe do I? No. I was going to compare it to one of my old Oakcasters, but actually it's not it's not the best shape to compare, and because I'm going to make another one of mine, and I'm going to put I'm looking to put a through neck in it, with basically on mine, not this shape, obviously a guitar shaped one. It's going to be shaped like this one, which is very dusty and never was used. It was a sort of test piece. It's going to have that basic shape, but it will be it'll be a carved shape. So this is my Trekkie shape, and the plan would be to have this onto there, with a bit of room, and somehow I'd like to get this all done in such a way that I don't have this sticking too far out the back. I certainly don't want the tuner sticking out the back, but these designs following this kind of inset neck I really like. I've got several of them and they're great guitars, if I may say so. But what I'm going to do is start one with the frets that begin here, so that I push the notes further out, because the smaller the guitar, the further into the body it tends to sit, so you end up being, your hand plays, when you're playing these notes around the 12th fret and beyond, you're quite far into the body. So I want to push this further out. So if I line these two up, I think it would probably it would kind of come out to about here. So quite a bit of an SG-ification, if you get what I mean. Anyway, I keep thinking about using the Steinberger thing. The reason I like to use the Chinese. Oh, sorry, I didn't see any of that. That was absolute shitty camera work. Sorry. Ignore I said any of that. I'll just show you what I was comparing it to. Yeah, the reason I prefer the Chinese neck is because it doesn't impose any design constraints on the shape. So any guitar that uses this Steinberger type neck has to have what I call a rebate cut out the end, right? Whether it's a smooth curve or a mechanically squarish one like that. But you have to have this overhang. And the great thing about the other one, the Chinese one, is it sits like a single unit there with the tuners pointing up nearly 90 degrees. So the back end of your guitar can be any shape you want, which is how I like the shape of my Trekkies. And then they sit beautifully on the leg. So I'm sort of half convinced to make my next one not use that, because I want to experiment and push the neck out on the next one. And I'm kind of tempted to use this because I've got it, but I really can't quite see how I'm going to get away without having to, I don't want this nice curve at the back and the bit where you can sit on your sofa and that goes against your leg. I don't think I can get that with that, unfortunately, and that's why that's why actually both Lawrence and Bob want this thing redoing. So there you go. Anyway, sorry about that terrible camera work. I'm going to put these as far away as I can. I'm going to make a whole set more in a minute of similar bits. Saddles, trim on. Now the thing is, with reselling value of these bridges, given that the whole guitar is about £350, it's not likely to fetch a great second-hand price, unfortunately. Anyway, we shall see. Right, so on this thing we have a small, very small hex key adjuster on the side, and this is what locks, I don't know if you can see, but the way you keep the saddles in line once you've decided on the intonation is by this little tiny pusher of a hex key, and once you push that, everything becomes loose and they can all come away. That is very primitive, I gotta say. Yes, indeed it is. Ooh. This is already, I'm sorry about that. I've just noticed this is already bent. So that's taken, is that bent or is that meant to be? No, it can't be. There's one on here, so let me see. Oh, I can't see without taking it out. That looks, yeah, it is bent. It's been dropped, and so maybe it's been, I think it's been deliberately twisted to stop it, getting, let's just undo this. I think it's been twisted to stop it sticking into people, which is odd, really. Right. God, weird. Right, anyway, this is, we don't want all of this to come apart, so let's put this back in here. Where's its thingy? Not on. Let's hope it's on. That doesn't want to do anything. Maybe that does. Okay. Right. Now, let me just see, because when I took this one apart, it's got a different structure. Just, whoops, kind of interested. So we got to here. That one sat on there like so, and the bits came together like that, and then you had to pull backwards to get it off, like so. There we go. So I better, well, no, I'm going to keep them out because I'm going to be very careful, but I just want to see them compared. So first of all, top section, same bridge effectively, old, new. That one's a different shape to that one. That one's carved in on both ends, so that's deliberate, I guess, and this one's flat on one side, but this one has definitely got a little bit more wear on this side than that one. Otherwise they're the same. Then we got the sort of cradle for the spring, which is pretty much just the same, although it has it's the same, has a thing on top. And there we have the gnarled, wow, that would stick out. How far would that stick out? Well, in this case, we've got it as a piece like that. That still doesn't stick out very far, but this one has, maybe it is meant to be like that, but it's a very, very odd. It looks bent, but I mean, it looks accidentally bent. Can you see that? That's a straight, I mean, it does its job, I guess, but goes down there, catches on there, lock. So it's got maybe it's got more of a grip than this one. Whoops, as you can see. This one doesn't have a twisted bit, it just has a little lever for pushing up there. There was a lot of complaint apparently about this type coming off while you were, didn't intend it to, so it got loose and then fell off, and sort of springing the tremolo into life when you least wanted it, which I can imagine would be an absolute pain in the backside. Okay, so we've got 4 screws here to remove. I mean, it just looks cleaner. It doesn't look any different in any substantial way. We've got clearly a painted shelf on there, which on the other one wasn't painted, I recall. It was bare wood. So far, nothing apart from the locking catch. And this one has a little rubber pad here, and this one has a bigger rubber pad here for the tremolo to rest down on, I believe. Now, I don't have any more Steinberger Spirit decals, so I didn't have any to begin with. I made my own Hohner ones. I've got a couple of Steinberger letterings, but nothing else. Okay, so there we go. There's our parts. There's our bridge parts all lying about. And then we've got the cavity. See, it has this little, slightly not very straight shaped thing, but a little bit of a flaring bit here. And then we've got the earth wire sticking up there, which the basic cradle sits on. And then we've got the difference between these two, quite substantially different, this twisted sideways thing, but I'm sure that can't have been done. It's been done, I mean, it's been literally manually bent in the factory, but I guess it's there so it does its job better. How it stops it coming off, I mean, if anything, that feels like it would catch worse. Maybe it goes all the way up. If that goes all the way up to there, does that feel like it would catch things? I don't know. Anyway, it goes back down there. And this one goes to that one. Let's zoom out. I said zoom out. Right, so just goes over here. These are from the original one. Blue spring on the Hohner. There you go. So we will take off the next things. Let's remove these. Now, taking off the paint on this, if you think about it, it's probably a very thin clear coat, relatively thin clear coat. And then there's a black poly paint or no, it won't be nitro, but so yeah, black. And then underneath that, you've got a sanding sealer, which is the absolute pain to take off. And that's the one that seems to take for hours. So I'm just going to loosen these screws, and slightly different. Somebody's lost one and replaced it with the wrong type. It's always the way. I'm just getting them started to make sure they do, and then we'll take out the pots and stuff and see what we've got. The Hohner has an interesting little box of tricks. Instead of a tone capacitor, it has, I've forgotten what they called it now. It had a name, has had a name, and it does the work of a tone capacitor on different settings, which is quite interesting. But I've got to put that together finally when all of the finishing work is done. So I'm not far off finishing the finishing, but it has to get the final coats. My high volume, low pressure spray gun has a slight habit of spitting a little bit somewhere in the process of using it. So it's turning out to be very good for putting on lots of, it certainly does, sorry, with the clear stuff. It's been very good for putting on lots of cover, lots of material. And then I'm kind of toying with the idea of putting the final visual coat, if you like, or the aesthetic coats from a tin spray can, because the spray can, one thing I guarantee on them is a full new spray can heated to the right temperature has a very good spray coverage, and it allows me to get sort of an out of the can finish when it comes to satin finishes. So I think I might well look at doing that, and it's another 20 quid, but it's much better than using up 5 tins of the same stuff. Okay, now we're going to go to the world of the electronics. So terrifyingly for some people, we end up with a pile of parts and a shell, and then at the end we put it all back together again. I will take a picture of the electrics in here and see if there's anything interesting. So we've got, blimey, pretty cheap Chinese switch. So we've got a capacitor of old style, we've got a barrel jack, we've got a 5-way switch, cheap, we've got a bit of extra wire here, and then we've got a volume pot down there. Kind of straightforward, really. Now the difficult part is getting things out. So we have to start by undoing this jack tunnel tube. What do you call it? Jack. What's that thing called? Barrel. That's the one. Let's go this way. Counter. Fiddly little bit just to begin with. So once we get that nut off, you see it comes out, and then we can remove it. So what I'll do is to get it out simply is to snip it. Like so. Once we get this off, we get kind of access to everything else. So to begin with, this is a very kind of crowded little space. There's our jack. Oh God, I'm sorry, what happened there? Oh dear, I'm just terrible at this. You've had to listen to me going on. Anyway, so now we get those out. Now we're going to get the switch out. Let's use a electrical screwdriver. So all of this is going to go in a box. Until time comes to put it back together again. So this is a simpler arrangement than the Hohner, that's for sure. So out comes the lever switch. There's a lot of wires, as you can see. It sort of expands into this little bird's nest. Now we've got our pickups are these 3 colours here. So we can, got tons of wire, so we can just snip them here. And I'm leaving the little stump one, so in case I got confused, I can always go back and reattach them. There's a ground for the bridge, but we should be able to pull that through because it was shown, or it was exposed once we took the bridge off. There's the pots, which we can just replace. Again, you can always upgrade if you're in the mood for those things. Now here, we're just going to now lift up these pickup rings, and then we're going to get each of the pickups up and out. And what I will do before I start any, well, no, I was going to say what I will do is mask off the neck, but actually, since I'm going to be doing a full setup anyway, there we go. So we got bridge has the black, This now is a little bit harder to get out because it's screwed to the wood. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, there's no real need to cover that up because I'm going to level and re-crown and polish out all the frets anyway as we get towards the end. So it's not necessary any little marks or anything on the frets. We're going to take care of them anyway. So up come the pickups. Oh, is that one still attached to wood? I think it might just be. Right, here it comes. Out comes the yellow. There we go. These are P90 screws, and this pickup is sitting on two pieces of foam. That's easy enough. If we lost it, we can find it back pretty easily. Make it up. We've got the GT Pro in black here. Logo, a piece of paper with a what do you call it? Not barcode. Oh my goodness me! QR code. QR code, and this one not dome topped like all the rest. So there we are. So in this now we can see the neck heel or the tongue tenon thing construction. So it really doesn't go very far in here at all. The grip is held by this chunk here and this chunk here. So when you make any changes to that, if you were to pull anything apart, you end up working with, you have to be careful, you've not got a lot of grip and you don't want to lose any of this grip here. So I'm going to stop here because I've already planned this for the weekend. Got a serial number which we may keep, depends. It'd be a bit crappy if it ends up black, so we may try and scrub that out or scratch it out, not out but clean it so it's in there as a embossment but not black, not black anymore. Anyway, so that's the weekend. We're going to have a go at this. It's pretty much ready now to do. I'm going to take this out because it's kind of in the way. It's not really essential, and what I'm going to do is end up shielding these cavities anyway along the way, so, and why not? So bits of paper getting in the way of that just don't add much. You see they've painted inside, but none of it's really shielded. That's okay. So this is the basic thing that is called a Steinberger or a Hohner GT3. In this case it's a Steinberger Spirit. Very, very simple design, or yeah, very straightforward, but sweet, and very practical for a guitar to take away. These are a little bit hard to keep when you're sanding. These faces here are not really very geometrically easy. They're quite organic, so you have to do careful sanding on a sort of plane and then hand sand around the edges and stuff. So I think what I'll start on before anything else is we'll probably start out with a scraping. We could try a heat gun, see what comes up. I've tried that before. Why didn't I do it last time? I don't really know. Don't want to get into warping and twisting or anything like that. I mean, it's not flame, it's just a heat gun. But it's actually, in a way, it's easier to scrape because you can do a lot of scraping with a blade like this. Look, it's going to happen, isn't it? So you can just begin. Oh no, is he really doing it? Yeah, and you can just stand and listen to something and just physically take it away. And of course here, this is the hard bit, to get into here and get rid of the black in the corners and stuff. That's okay, you can leave that the way it is. So it's this area here is hard. I had to resort to using my bobbin sander, pillar sander, or whatever it's called, bobbin sander, to get in there. It's just no way I could do that by hand. And it's also end grain, and it's very, very dense. So, but that was on the Hohner. We'll see what, thank you, we'll see what comes up with this. Anyway, sorry about some of the rubbish camera work in here. I'm going to go and find a nice container for all these parts and pack the other one away and think about it another day. But I hope that was interesting to see a Steinberger Spirit. And for the people who come see it on YouTube and comment, you know, you should never have done that, and you should have you know, got the more expensive thingies, whatever they call these pinch points, you know, pivot points. You should have gone and got those and improved it. I would, except the customer doesn't want that bridge in there, and you just have to accept that. And I've said this a number of times on many videos, but it's not my place to lecture the customer on what he or she should want. You know, it's obvious. I had a conversation today with Bob saying, you know, we could improve it. There are these parts for better quality posts. We could invest in those, and he's still very happy that he wants to keep to his original plan. As far as long as I've laid out clearly what the alternatives and possibilities are, then absolutely I'm going to go with what my customer wants, providing that the thing I'm going to put on there instead, I have confidence that it will meet his needs. And if his needs are to play the guitar without worrying about it going out of tune, and with a nice piece of wood that you can rest against your leg without bits of great big pieces of metal sticking into your leg like that, amongst other things, then I'm confident that will do the job for him. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you again. Not really a setup or anything. This is just a tear down of a guitar. I'll tell you what, while I'm at it, let me show you, because we're on the subject, let me show you the Hohner, which is coming home with me tonight for sanding. So this has been stripped down and stripped down, refretted and everything, and now it's just been given, it's had TruOil for colour, and now it's just had quite a few layers or quite coats of satin nitro. And funnily enough, this 30% satin nitro is actually quite shiny, as you can see, so I'm going to want a lower shine, and that in a way that also means getting a tin to do it, which has because I know the tins that I use have a slightly duller sheen. Of course, we can always take it back to dull and then bring it back up with a bit of a buff as well. So, and that's my decal that I put on, made by hand, or designed by hand. And you can see a couple of little blotches here and there, but that will be taken down nicely with the. That's interesting. Why is that? I don't know why that's made a mark across there. What did I press down on there? Oh, I know what it is. It's the that's the little grub screws pressing in. Oh, you can't see it, can you? The little grub screws in the bridge, in the new bridge. They're the ones that hold the saddles down. So they're clearly just a bit proud of the surface, so they make an impression. I wonder what it was. Anyway, this is going well. I think I'll need just one more suitable weather day. You can probably see the end here where I repaired the two really badly misplaced holes. They were just holes, so I've cleaned those up. But in structure, it's very, very similar to our friend, the Steinberger. Of course, what you have here is 3 on switches, volume and tone, whereas here it's got a 5-way. But getting all the material off this back to wood, you can see that obviously I filled the block here. It's very hard to get it exactly the same shape. It's quite a complicated shape, and doing it by hand is very difficult. But actually with the bridge on, it looks pretty nifty anyway. So yes, getting it back to, you know, just plain wood is a big chore. But this wasn't bad looking. You know, now there's no reason, I have to say, why that one shouldn't have a similar look. It may well not, but they're all made from multiple pieces of wood, and you can see clearly that this is a neck through, really. 3-piece neck, goes straight the way through to the back there. Kind of what I was thinking about doing on my next one. So it's a neck through, and you can actually see the 3 pieces here as well. Obviously it's cut out there. So that's what we're going to get to over the weekend. So how strange to have 2 of them in the house being stripped back. So, and people will say, oh, but you could buy something else. Now, the only thing I would recommend is, yes, you could buy one of my Trekkie guitars, which is much more organic and sits on your leg without this squarish section there. But that's a bit more expensive, so we shall see. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you soon.
To be occupied territory. It was territory in which, in places particularly like West Bank and Gaza, very, very large Palestinian communities were living.
Kind of interesting listening to a podcast with Rory, Stewart and Alistair Campbell. I respect both of them in different ways, but while I'm at it, I just thought I will do the taking apart and setting up of this bridge. And the first few steps really towards positioning the bridge and everything on Bob's thing. So straight in from China. So I'm not really going to talk through this. So here we have it. They're making these better these days. That's what I've got to say. You can see I'm pretty bloody cold. I've got my usual clobber on, a thermal thing underneath here, and I'm still cold. And I've got this puny heater running, and there's Bob's Steinberger. That needs some stuff to make it, you know, black stuff, shielding. Single coil. That's a bit of a pain, isn't it? A bit of extra shielding to do on that one. Still, anyway. So let's kind of look up close at this thing. So I'm going to probably use this just for pictures, so don't worry about the sound aspect of it. The important thing is we can use these, they're brand new, but they're Chinese made, so we don't want to put too much faith in them. So we use a fresh one of these to undo all of these things. Blimey, I don't like the look of that. Ooh, that doesn't feel very good at all, straight away. Ugh. We've got a problem, Houston. I think we've got a problem already. So, this is very stiff. Probably better than not being stiff, but it doesn't even want to come out. Let's see if we can get it out in one piece. Cool. Never been that stiff before. Let's hope that it's not damaged it in any way. Well, actually it looks okay, bizarrely. So all of these pieces I'm going to put off to one side, and then we'll basically clean up. So what am I? Oh my god, I'm too cold. I can't move my hands. It's currently 4 degrees in here, so you can tell it's a bit cold. Yes, before we grease each of them, they've all been done up really tight. That is liable to break any hex keys. Jeez. You have to figure a way of getting that in and out without damaging the keys. Such a tight fitting machine screw, it's not good. It's showing okay, the threads are all intact, but wow, never felt such tight screws before. A bit looser.
What's it going to mean to be a sovereign state, how the West Bank and Gaza will deal with each other, and what Israel's called. Is it a Jewish state, which is how Israelis want to view it, and Palestinians challenge that because they say there are very large number of Palestinians living in Israel.
So this podcast is talking about various issues around the two-state solution.
But Tony Cook is a much, much deeper expert who's been in the heart of this and is going to explain.
So they've already oiled these a little bit, which is good compared to previous ones. They were dry.
And I think one of the reasons why it's important that people listen to somebody like Tony Clove is, as people are going to hear very shortly, he just has this stuff kind of oozing from his fingertips, the history, the context, and I think a pretty deep understanding of both sides. I think very, very irritated with America, their historic role, quite irritated with the way that he sees it as outside powers, thinking that they're always the solution when they might be part of the problem. But I think the other thing that's important is just to, it comes across from really listening to it.
It's really hard. I don't know how anyone managed to do this up without it stripping.
To explain something as complicated as the history of this, and that's what I think you and I have been trying to do with some of the extra podcasts we've been doing in recent weeks. And
Bloody hell.
we should say that in addition to talking to Tony earlier this week, and we're talking now today, the day that there is finally talk of a possible 4-day truce to allow some of the Israeli hostages to be released. But we're also
How old is this one?
talking in the coming days to the historian Simon Sebag Montefiore, who, like Tony, knows the history of this stuff inside out. So I hope listeners will enjoy this. He's a very interesting guy.
Right.
An awful lot about
So,
it. He'll also be
there we have it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sandpaper back some of that there. The reason why is because it's going to need to make electrical contact.
Two-state solution. And you'll hear in his interview that he's very frustrated with the push for another idea, which is the one-state solution. And the one-state solution essentially says that the two-state solution can't happen. There are too many settlements. There's no way hundreds of thousands of Israelis are going to leave where they are. And therefore, many Palestinians are now saying let's have one state, which will include all the West Bank, Gaza and Israel, and a single state, proper civil rights for Palestinians. But the problem there is that's unacceptable to Israel because the Palestinians would be the majority in that binational state, and it would no longer be a Jewish dominant state. We're also going to
Glued in mess by the look of it. Glass is gunge free.
On the West Bank of Gaza, the eastern Sudan as its capital alongside the Israeli state. They often meant something with limited autonomy and much smaller area of land. It wasn't clear whether Gaza Strip was involved in that at all.
So to take it back to the real basics, we're talking to a very non-specialist audience, who I'm afraid won't have heard of many of the people you've mentioned. So
Right, okay.
I'm going to take it right back to basics. When we look in the mid-90s at the agreements that come out of Oslo going towards Camp David and people start talking about a two-state solution, what do they mean?
Well, I think that was closer to what I had been advocating, and some Israelis and Palestinians too, namely a sovereign independent state. It was never clear, because the Oslo Accord did not actually support a two-state solution. It was never mentioned. There was an assumption that that would be the end of the process. But Rabin, for example, never mouthed those words, and didn't even talk about dismantling the settlements on the West Bank, which were one of the impediments for the Palestinians to have their own state there. You said that every perceived advance since 1967 was been by a seismic event. First of all, what do you mean by that? And secondly, I think we all agree that what we're going through at the moment is a seismic event. So what advance...
Okay, to get this positioned, I'm going to need to put
Well,
these two back in. So let's get them greased up and replaced to begin with. And we'll get the action position sort of midway.
That generated a movement among the Palestinians which ended with them supporting a Palestinian state on the West Bank and Gaza alongside Israel instead of in place of Israel, which had been their previous position.
Not too bad, that's gone in a bit easier, thankfully. Take the low E now and do the
Egypt-Israel peace treaty.
greasy bits.
The first Intifada, 1987, prompted, the Arab Peace Initiative was the second Intifada. It prompted Oslo. It prompted the Oslo Accords, and the second Intifada prompted the Arab Peace Initiative. So these are probably the four major peaceable breakthroughs since 1967, and they all followed, with a time lag obviously, some seismic event.
Does that mean you think that those parts of the world that aren't necessarily from that region, in that region, only really focus on this when we're in a crisis? And is that why crisis can be the thing that leads to progress?
It's not so much the rest of the world, because really the rest of the world had little to do with all four events that I just mentioned. They were actually prompted from...
Oh, so cold in here.
I don't think that's going to happen on this occasion, because I think the two parties just, I don't think they really know what they're doing. They don't have any clear strategies. It urgently needs outside intervention on this occasion.
Moving forward then to now.
Okay, we'll just keep that off to one side to do the bridge positioning with. And meanwhile, I will keep these all in position, but just do their greasy bits, except for the machine screw. So I'm just working with the grub screws at the moment.
It's always been the one that for the last 50 plus years I've been advocating. I mean, it wasn't done by caprice. It was done by really knowing Israelis and Palestinians very well, and getting inside their hearts and souls and minds, and trying to identify what their absolute basic minimum core aspirations were. In both cases, the conclusion was self-determination in a state of their own, within the country, within the claim of that self.
There is no other solution that is outside that framework.
Well, any solution has to satisfy the minimum core aspirations of the two peoples and allay their maximum fears. So if there is another solution which is capable of doing that, then I would support it. But I'm not aware of any others, and I don't see the others, and therefore I think, recently, one or two people who have been strongly critical of two states in the last few years, ridiculed it, have come back on board and are now calling for its urgent implementation.
So, just to step back for a second and step away from what you're proposing towards the bigger context. Looking objectively at this, or stepping back from what we know you want, what are the arguments for and against a one-state solution or alternatives to a two-state solution? If you were playing devil's advocate against yourself.
Okay, so to be clear, first of all, it's not a question of what I want, because what I want is to see this conflict resolved. I have many friends and colleagues over many years among both Palestinians and Israelis, and that's my aim. Therefore, what I favour is the proposal which is capable of achieving that. It is two states, but if it were one state, then I would go for that.
Play devil's advocate and make the argument against yourself. What would people say you were attacking?
Well, they would say that you should have a state with total equality, full democracy, in which everyone is treated equal. And I agree with you. I mean, if you ask me theoretically, what sort of state I like democratic secular states. I sort of live in one with all its flaws, but I prefer it as a model. If you can have nation states as your system, that's the type of nation state I...
So for listeners, to summarise that vision, that is a vision where all the existing borders that exist between the occupied Palestinian territories and Israel disappear. It becomes one government, all Palestinians, all Israelis are voting for super government, and that everybody's civil rights protected. That's supposed to be the alternative vision.
Well, that's one alternative. But bear in mind,
Out of the way for a minute.
they have lots of different ideas. If you ask state solution, and the United States. Ask the far right of Israel, it's a Jewish state. Ask the PLO under the charter, it's an Arab state. It could be a binational state, except that most.
What would a binational state?
Well, it would be that you would have, it would be a sort of federated state where the two parties, the two people, would be able to exercise their own national self-determination within their own chambers, but within the context of one state. The problem with the one secular democratic state is it atomizes everyone down to the level of the individual. So there are no collective rights acknowledged. And that's not acceptable to either Israelis or Palestinians, which is the reason why I think it's difficult to support it.
Just in my last but why would that not be accepted? Because of course for many British American listeners from a sort of liberal enlightenment tradition, that was in self-evident. Equality of law, equal votes. Why would it not be acceptable to
Well, I
either
think
side?
within each state there has to be equality of the law. And so the question is whether that's only one state or two states. There's nothing magical about another state. Three states, four states. So
But in the one state solution which you were just talking about,
yes.
why is it that you think that it's unrealistic to imagine it in terms of individuals? What is it that makes that not suit the aspirations of Israelis and Palestinians? Compared to, for example, people elsewhere in the world who do it.
Very far from the world. It's very much a Western notion, and in fact that is the problem with the whole proposal. It comes largely from well-meaning Western liberals, leftists, who want to create their own image out in other regions. They can't just replicate that, you can't just impose your own tracking systems and structures on other parts of the world. We, British, generally as well, have been doing that for centuries, and it's created mayhem around the world.
So given all that, what is it about the aspirations or views of Israelis and Palestinians which mean that it's unrealistic?
Because both peoples aspire to self-determination in their own state. If they didn't do that, then I think the one-state democratic secular model.
Double check this. This is always an important one to double check.
That you listed a few moments ago, right now, today, feel absolutely impossible. You can't imagine it being an Islamic state. You can't really imagine it being a Jewish state. You can't imagine it being an Arab state.
How does this work?
Hatred's not so deep that actually imagining any form of coming together right now, today, 2023, feel more distant than they ever have.
Well, I think the way to bring them together is for each party to
Holy
exercise
crap.
self-determination.
How can I get that so wrong on the first go?
Create, I think it would happen naturally, a number of horizontal connections between the two sides, between the parties, unions, counter activities, and so on and so forth.
Amazing.
And that may evolve into some sort of confederation between Israel and Palestine, except that I would say that it couldn't work unless it included Jordan as well.
I've had a fair bit to deal with both Israelis and Palestinians. How would you find, when you're talking to them, when you're trying to get to the heart of what they think and what they want, how different are they as negotiators, as political entities? How would you define the difference?
Between Israelis and Palestinians?
Yes.
Well, I think there are two levels. One is how they negotiate. The Israeli system of negotiating is very much the Western type model, where you put forward your proposal less than you're prepared to accept. The other side puts something a bit higher, and that is the barter and reach an agreement. But with no necessarily any notion of the end game. But if you look at all the Arab peace initiatives, that is to say, the Sadat initiative,
Just double check it again.
the PLO decision
Worries
in
me.
1988 to
Right, we get halfway point. Here is 3. It's actually 3. According to this, it's 3.
and then the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002. These were all
3. It's actually 325.
and then they work back. So you begin with the end game.
650 is the correct mark. Jesus.
How you implement it, the timing.
And so what was the end game?
So
650.
the first one
Let's
was
just get this
the
right.
and the end game was that
Obviously.
it was completely from the whole of the Sinai Desert that they captured in 1967. in exchange
650.
for Egypt recognising Israel and establishing full diplomatic relations and peace. The 1988 decision by the PLO was that they would recognise Israel and recognise the fact its right to exist
650 is the correct scale length for this, which is really
in exchange
disturbing since
for
how
stable
this other
Gaza
one
with its capital, East Jerusalem.
was different.
And the Arab
But
peace
we've got to go with the 12 fret measurement. That's
was
the
an offer to
the
Israel
guiding
for full diplomatic relations,
guiding thing.
and recognition by the entire Arab world.
What am I resting on here?
Palestinian state. So all these three, you had the end game, and then they wanted to discuss about the logistics.
A lot of the, when I read out your kind of CV, a lot of the word strategy keeps popping up, and I'm a bit strategy obsessive, and I'd love to ask you to try to define what you see as the current
650.
strategy of both Hamas and of
50
Israel.
is the
because
correct
from where I'm
scale length
sitting,
for this
it's very, very hard to fathom.
odd guitar. There's a lot of space between the bridge pickup. That's quite unusual, but that is the way it is. Okay, so now we're going to refit a headpiece.
Really, both of them.
Yes, circumstances. And if you judge from their actions, how much you might think that their strategy is one of self-destruction, and in almost certain knowledge that Israel would respond ferociously to their attack, and then get destruction on the people of Gaza too.
What and why? No. Why might they think those sense?
I'm just saying that if you look at what they
Why it seems like it's not real.
you can deduce that strategy. It's difficult to deduce the total frustration.
Sorry about this. There's major components over there.
Consideration of the consequences, which have been absolutely
I'm going to go for
dire.
grounding wire, bridge saddles, bridge saddles, bridge saddles,
Not only would you say
tensioner spring,
he was elaborating,
bridge saddles, bridge saddles, knobs, knops,
and continue on its march towards
strap buttons,
so contrary to its
jack.
founding purpose
Plug.
and principles.
It's interesting.
And
Tip these out here.
very high strategies on the ordinary people.
Okay, everything out. Nearly.
Do you, we talked about it so much on the podcast already, but is part of it the fears that Alistair, the relations between the
Bridge.
Iranians and the Saudis were
Anchoring posts. It's okay.
And why would
Now I'm
they be
looking for
worried about
end pieces.
Well, they
Three
would be worried
of those.
about being
I've got
sidelined
a
and
like
their
machine
policies
bolts
still
here.
in
We've
Israel,
got 6 of
although
those
they're
screws there.
17
2 are different, I think.
of the original
Yes, 4 domed,
charter
3 flat here. I have 2 flat end ones
the readiness
for the end
to
piece.
recognise Palestinian state on the West Bank and Gaza. But the establishment of, and Saudi obviously is the most powerful country in the region, and so they might have felt that they would lose control altogether for Saudis establishing nations.
Stop it.
When you're following the British media, what do you think, talking to any person, what do you think the British public misses about this? What do you think people don't understand about what's going on? What fundamentally irritates you when you watch coverage of this? Do you think people are missing?
But, I think a big problem is that this conflict has gone on for far too long. It's outlived the century which created it. You had other conflicts, you had the Northern Ireland,
Yeah.
you had the apartheid in South Africa.
I am not
the whole communist-
wholesomely convinced about this.
all products of the 20th century, all dissolved before the end of the 20th century. And this one
Don't look.
lines being
They look too
in fact, we had
small.
delegations come over
No,
from South
I think
Africa and Northern Ireland
this will be that. Those will be for the thing. In which case, what is the one? What are the ones holding on this thing? Damn. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these long ones. No, 4. I've got 6 of these long ones. 6 of these long ones. And we've got some smaller ones. 1, 2, 1 flat one.
What do you
Small
say
ones.
when people ask, what is this conflict all about?
Well, essentially, it's about
Round topped, round top long ones, round top long ones, flat round top, flat top. Okay, so we've got 4 and 6. I've got the only one that's got a surround. No, there's 2 lots of surrounds. Okay, 4 of those, 4 of those, 4 of those. But that could well be. The cover ones. 4 in the cover ones. And that was the original bridge plate. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of these. Those are those. Those go with that tremolo. Okay, that's good. We've got 2 machine bolts here. 2 machine bolts. Where did the machine bolts go? They're not on the side, are they? No, because they are screw holes. So 2 machine bolts. These don't go in the end here. Those are for the pickup surround rings. That makes sense. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 long ones. 6 long ones. 1, 2, 3, we need 8. Okay, so 4 of these are going to be back. So 2 of these are going to be. 2 of these are going to be the anchor ones at the end here. Doesn't seem to make sense to me, but it probably has to be the way. Yeah, I would think so.
So I had travelled extensively, and this issue had dominated just about every agenda wherever I went, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, or whatever. So I went back when my term of office ended to do my PhD.
My dexterity has vanished.
My supervisor said to me when we agreed that I would write the introductory chapter as a brief history of the conflict. Just make sure you're being objective and neutral and impartial, and don't be swayed by the passions or the emotions. Just stick to the facts. And I set off to do that. I did far more extensive research and talking to people and reading. And I found I couldn't get one fact to sit still long enough to get it down on paper. Then came the eureka moment, and I realized what I was trying to do was impossible. There wasn't one history. There were 2 histories, 2 distinct people. Each had its own history, and they coincided on the same piece of territory at the same period.
Interesting point he's making there.
So that's in
No single history.
In an ideal world, in a positive world, that would lead kind of automatically and inexorably to a 2-state solution. And yet, I can't think of a time when it's felt more distant. So how do you keep going, and how do you keep hopeful that this thing can be resolved?
Well, I don't know how hopeful I am. When I wrote this pamphlet, which was in the early 1970s, advocating a 2-state outcome, I fully expected it to be implemented by the middle.
Where's my thing? I think I might have to get rid of this scarf. No, that's okay. So I've put this on here, and now we're going to need a couple of sacrificial strings for the purpose of alignment. Whilst these sound like a good idea, they're still too short, if I recall. Tried to reuse one yesterday for positioning, but it's okay. I shall go to the Department of Spare Strings for something suitable. Let's have a look. If we put that on there, can we get? No, we can't. We can't reach the. We can't reach it. This is history, expensive history.
Explain both things. Explain what people mean when they say there's no alternative, and explain what people mean when they say it's dead.
Well, there are a lot of people who feel, as I do, that unless you allow both people to exercise their self-determination, no solution will work and be sustainable. We try to impose it from the West very often. That's a sort of neo-colonial mindset. But you're trying to impose your own views on other people. You have to see it from the inside. And that's what my approach, my pamphlet was about.
Spare
Writing
strings.
histories entirely from the inside, subjectively, with all the emotions of the time aspect left out.
The second thing that says the 2-state solution is dead. What do they mean by that?
Here's a spare string that we should keep for other occasions. Let's use a third.
Against it since the early 2000s, the number of settlements seems to make it practical.
this not fit in here, you son of a gun? Son of a gun, as it's uncalled. Well, that's a crap string. Shit, that's rubbish. So that won't fit in there. Bloody hell. What am I going to do? That ain't no good. I'll have to sacrifice. No, I tell you what, let's sacrifice this 8 gauge for the sake of getting something done. I'm not likely to fit an 8 gauge anytime soon. Just want to try and get this done. This is Didaria, so it should fit.
So there are enough people saying, look, that's open.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's right. I think you can only go for the only plausible solution because you don't have an alternative. So you have to make what appears to be more feasible.
Come on. Yeah, that works.
There are ways of doing it, but you can overcome that problem given the political will.
So we will snip that off in a minute.
What should, say, for example, the United States or European Union or some of the other players that look in on this and try to help?
Let's try and
credit of
get.
trying to help.
Try. Alistair, try.
Saying when this settlement was developed,
See if this will
and when it
thread onwards.
land, as you say, was being-
Should do, it's a bigger gap.
Well,
Yeah,
the
not bad.
West did, give the credit, be very clear in saying that it's illegal to transfer your own population into occupied territory under the convention. That's very clear. It's also very unhelpful to a settlement of the conflict. But they only spoke the words. They didn't back it up with any sort of effective enforcement mechanism. That's what they did. Laying down the law, you
I think
can-
they're talking about
and if you do
the failure, inverted commas, of the UN
Like,
to
like pulling the plug on money,
make anything actually work.
obvious, but it could be a package of incentives and penalties.
And do you think it's now far too gone, the settlement issue?
It's all very well in the UN saying this should and that should and this shouldn't happen. Unless you've got the UN putting it into practice. So,
You can take Czechoslovakia.
a mess, but that'll do for now. Steady on, hold chap. Right, we'll just sort of start with that one. That's a bit of a mess, but it'll do.
You could have the two states next to each other, collaborating. No But it's not the only one.
Okay.
Do senior Israeli politicians of any sort really want a two-state solution? And it seems to be looking at the
Two-state
actions
solution.
particularly of the current government.
So what I'm just trying to do here is make sure that I've got as
I'm talking to a prominent member of Labour Friends of Israel who was saying to me recently,
make sure I've got the right action,
you
pretty
need to
much,
understand that
There
this
you go.
particular place where a settlement was happening,
followed by the right side-to-side position. And then what I'll do is I'll mark it up.
The more I was listening, the more it seemed to me that this kind of conversation wasn't really consistent with any vision of a two-state.
Okay, so both
It's not just
saddles at the moment are flat on the ground, lowest they can be, so you could make it, check that it works at this setting. So what I'm going to do now is the idea will be to tune these up.
And so
I've got slight little unevenness going on under here. What is it? Oh, I know what it is. It's this bloody thing under here. I might have to grind that back. That's the first time I've had that happen. There's a bump under there. I don't like it. It's the magnet sticking out. Made some mistake fitting it. Okay, well here's our sort of basic position, and there isn't really an awful lot.
what would
Wow,
be
this is stiff.
his vision Or in an even
Let's get
more
our
extreme
tuning
sense,
knob
smart transmission, and why do they
and
think
undo it
they could be
slightly.
remotely plausible or feasible?
Okay, so
Tell us-
we want to
tell us
basically
about their thinking there.
bring this
What do you think they might be able to pull off before we get
bring
on
this
to
to the
it?
front,
I hope I
bring this into position, I should say,
and think what they're thinking.
and we're going
What I
to
believe to be the case is
wind
that,
it up just a little bit and pull itself forward to the right place, which will be there, and then we'll do the same to this
and to make
side.
it difficult for the Palestinians to stay. Doesn't necessarily mean an explicit expulsion.
That will work.
It's happening now. It's taking over their homes. It's making it difficult for them.
And the normal
Absolutely zero side to side
this is not sustainable.
leeway movement here,
In the end,
so
this is going to be
we have to get it
dangerous for Israel.
dead right the first time,
To which presumably from the far right
which will
Israeli
be there.
smart you say what?
I don't care. I have my objective. That's what I believe in, whether it's for strong nationalist reasons or historical reasons or religious reasons, and the rest of the world can go to hell. And it's up to the rest of the world to respond, to say, well, we're not prepared to go to hell, and these are the terms.
And then Hamas. If you're an extremist in Hamas, you're on the radical edge.
Got that one done.
What is your
The last one they
idea
can't
of what
reach, but
should
I'll have to make it up
the next 10, 20 years?
out of those
More or less in their
ones.
Well, it
Okay,
should
that's
be
going to be our
entirely
position
state.
marked.
In
Now,
which Jews can remain
this means we will
minority
remove
rights, naked
the
religious
strings.
national rights,
Actually, what we'll
because this is
do,
the step.
yes, we will
So the standard
we'll undo this one. I've done a bad thing here. It's a very shitty. I've wound on too much, so it's made a bit of a stinky mess.
This is the current reality. And this is part of the reason why Israel wants to destroy
Yeah. Come on. Damn it.
What do you think we, as a world, have not learned that we should have learned from those who have failed to get
No way I can get this bit off here.
What happened in the other cases is that they were resolved primarily by the people concerned, together with some outside systems.
That was my mistake for putting it on wrong in the first place. Right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to chuck these strings away because they're dead, and we're going to mark up, take off the saddles, these two, mark up the position where they should be, and we'll really drill in our first holes.
The Middle East comes back and it teaches you on the bottom whether you like it or not. The only way you can get away from it is to resolve the conflict.
So, what did it feel like? What was the experience for you from the assassination of Bean onwards? Was it a slow realization that the energy was going out of the two-state solution? What was that consequence of that quite long period, 30 years? There's been a sort of retreat from that moment onwards.
Right, so the action looked good. I'm
Euphoria.
fairly confident in that.
Were agreed
Here
and
we have
I remember
the
getting
position
somewhere saying, well, it
of
looks
the
like
bridge.
the conflict is over. And that wasn't a question of optimism. I mean, it did look as if that was the direction it was going.
Now we've got middle point in each of
When the
these.
assassination took place, when his deputy Shimon Peres took over and then got defeated in the next election by the right wing, I think we all went into cold storage. There have been many Palestinian, Israeli and Palestinian Jewish dialogue groups operating at that time. They all subsided, they all closed down the moment Netanyahu
Good. That's that. That's the position. So, first thing we're going to do is make a mark for each of those positions. And then we're going to decide which, I guess we'll use the supplied screws. We might as well. They're quite big.
And it doesn't have the support of its people. So even if you were to do a deal with the current Israeli government would never do, they can't deliver. And I think Israel really missed the boat there with the not dealing with Arafat. Arafat, for all his faults.
Now, what I've also got to do is I've got to get a hole through here
I saw him shortly after
into the electrics cavity. There already was one in the olden days below there, but I've got to get a new one in. And I've got to get it through at an angle. It's got to be close enough that I can get it through, and it's got to be at a decent enough angle. And it's also got to be covered by the base of the bridge, so it's covering the thing. Then we've got to paint this and insulate this as a separate activity. Okay, so we'll double check our depths and stuff. That's going to go in there fine, there's no problem. We have got some metal screws under here, hopefully not in line with these. The worst thing is if it goes down past there, you could really do shorter fixing screws. There's no reason not to have them. If we start with shorter, we could see if we can get deeper. Let's see what we've got, if anything. I need a strap button to take home with me, first of all, for a guitar at home. What have I got to? Do I have any glue? No, probably. Yes, maybe. Oh, yes, probably. Come on. There's that. I'm just going to go in there. That's going to sit in there. We're still looking for some certain black anchor screws. They're in here somewhere, and I don't know where at with them. Check here, no, yes, no, no. Nah, not really. They're not pulley downy ones. Let's see what these ones are. Well, these are shorter actually. Technically we could use those. We could start with those. That would give us a bit of leeway. Let's borrow them. No, because somebody's going to want them. Look, I've got to be confident that that's enough. We're not going to run into it. I could tell, I could find out by drilling down with a very small bit. That's probably the best idea. Let's make a first thingy. 1.5 to the depth of
you have to cast your mind into a different norm, because anything you think about security, whatever it may be, in a presumptive war situation,
really good.
Now about achieving peace and harmony.
Really good. Good. Fabulous. So we're not hitting any metal. That's good. So that's that sorted out. Now we want the correct width. Oh no, this thing's running out of batteries. 4. So we want a 3 minimum, really. Let's go with 3. good.
Well, again, we have
Use
to
that one.
observe that we're now
And
talking
we
about
will, what was I going to do?
so there's no problem.
Oh yeah, perhaps a bit of that first.
Either be either Palestinian citizen or Palestinian resident, all the barriers and checkpoints down. There will be joint security. That was good. Quite a lot of work was done on this, drawing up possibilities
Lovely.
of a dedicated road, a bridge, a tunnel.
Now,
You can be creative about these things.
we are committed to this lovely measurement now. We are confident in it, committed to it. Look at that.
Why haven't we long term objectives? Why haven't it to remain in our governmental and institutional memory? And how important is it to get about it?
Well, I mean, there are people who do it.
I'm sure, but I mean, in
Okay.
terms of, it's not. I was shocked the other day to read, for example, over
Good,
2%
good.
of schools
Now, oops, I'm gonna lost me mark, didn't I?
That strike me as very, very sensible. As you say, a lot of our politicians and politicians around the world
There's my start point to do a
understanding of the issues at heart, and yet
gap.
manage
Now, I've got to get from there
their government's policies.
through
So I
the
just
side of here. I think we should be all right with a single drill bit, but we need a long reach, as long as possible.
History
So.
is no longer compulsory at GCSE level, so it's not just they don't know Middle East history, I don't think they know our own history either. And I think that's very dangerous. I think it's
Okay, a little bit of a dig there. I'm sorry.
We have, let's say, just to wrap up things that
There we are.
you were saying, initiatives
There we go.
from the
Quite good.
supported by the US and Western governments, based on the Arab Peace Initiative, possibly looking towards a possible confederation of Jordan and Palestine. And you would need to employ a panel of experts.
Make a little countersink for
who can advise them.
these.
You can't educate people, and the way it doesn't. But you need to target it, focus it where it does work, and the time to act is now.
Tony, thank you.
Thank you. So, Rory, any of the wiser?
Yes, I think wiser, but I think also
Any of the wiser,
for
Rory?
you and I who works in
Okay.
ways, a real reminder of the
So,
challenges of processing
everything's
information
happy and ready except this little
and the challenges
devil.
an expert
They've-
has in explaining
I don't know
to
if you can
policymakers
see, but
experts.
they've messed it up somewhere. Sometimes I've seen before the magnet sometimes falls out, and you can see it's sitting proud, and that's either we're gonna make a dent in there, which we have to dig out, or we're going to grind it back. If we grind it back and it falls out, then we aren't really going to get very far.
It was fascinating.
Probably grind it back.
The conflicts, the major conflicts.
Just needs to be
that
flat, really.
define most of his life, most of my life, most of your life. They were solved. Northern Ireland, apartheid, Cold War, and it was clear that he made that this one cannot live in that century, and we thought that it was going to be resolved in that century. And here we are. And I think that this, we are sitting there looking at this publication which is written in the Steinberger Spirit, and essentially arguing for the same thing. And he's still essentially arguing for the same thing, but he's also very, very cognizant.
We'll get there. Just a bit slower.
Have, as we stand here today, made it more difficult. And yet at the same time, somehow, I'm going to a sort of optimism that because the video eventually it has to be there.
Yeah, and I think your experience in Northern Ireland is interesting here because it's very human person to say that sometimes North is east, sometimes the same conflicts that seem to be unsolvable. But it does require on both
Small
sides
quality controlled detail.
real effort, and you I would struggle with this moment is to find the
Thank
leadership
you.
either in Palestine
I
or
mean,
Israel that really wants
it's not.
to drive this through.
If there's one sort of common thread, perhaps, between what Tony Clugg was saying and what we'll hear from
Still got a tiny bit of a
Montefiore when he comes on in a few days.
thing
is a
sticking
real
out.
sense of frustration with both leaderships. I thought Tony was
Could put it on the
fascinating. He said that
sanding
this is
block,
a guy who's rooted
sand it
in
flat.
work in
I'll
strategy of
just
both
keep
Israel
going a bit
and
with this.
Palestinians. And he said he doesn't have a clue how to define what their concepts are. So I think everybody is assuming that it's going to be sensitive and leadership on both sides at some point to obviously move them in the right direction. But before we move about expertise, and of course, Michael very famously expert, times like this is really dealing with facts and historical context is literally slow. And I was very impressed with them. Particularly there's so much experience and work there, and it's invaluable, I think, when you're trying to explain the context of this in a world when millions of people around the world think that they know the history, they know the facts, and one tweet will explain the whole thing perfectly clearly for the rest of the world.
Yeah, one tweet sums up what
Thank you.
Israel
Thank you for making
Palestine
that happen.
conflict.
And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
He said something very, very interesting. He said he wondered whether with Brexit
Close.
would hit people
Close.
populism, but the rest of Europe is yet to hit it. I saw somewhere Fraser Nelson, Spectator, saying that the
Fraser
great
Nelson. Fraser Nelson. Ah yes, I forgot the way out. The way out. It's the first way out. So there you go. This is way out.
Sunak is becoming his own way of populism. Sir Johnson.
Listen, I'm going to chat. I don't think it's anything like populist Johnson, and I don't think nothing like
Oh come on, hold on. So this, I have to do the whole of the inside of this with shielding because it's just so.
Welcome to the rest of politics. Me, Alistair Campbell.
You've already Stewart.
So
Busy week. Over the autumn statement.
yeah,
Migration
it's so not
policy, about all of that.
conductive at the moment.
We're also going to cover
Okay, we have.
the far right.
Oh yeah, right. It's going to tell me it's going to need to be 3.5 mil drill. Is this what happened before? Could well have been.
And that is
Somewhat sticky.
what's been, I think, unless there's any deeper explanation, only described as a temper tantrum by Little Rishi.
Or misplayed politics. So, to give
Mm.
background, the Greek
Four.
predecessor, Kent,
I really want one. Do I want one or is it a bit tight? Let's go 3.5. 3.5. There's a 3.5. Where's the 3 one gone?
Which then astonishingly, to demonstrate it seems
15. Full spin. Thank you.
The reason for the cancellation
Right, stop short.
was
Thank you.
having the is like having Mona Lisa cut
Thank
in
you.
two places. This is what's been I don't know. But the whole thing just strikes me as ludicrously petulant.
And you don't think it's a very strange attempt to try to grab headlines that they were jealous that some got pressed out of meeting with
In which case it's even worse.
yeah, even worse.
I mean, this
Under 4.
Mistake, it's not
Better.
made.
Still a good fit.
it would irritate the Prime Minister who's a visitor. You sort of assume a quick in and out. If they've got time, most of them
We'll meet the better
usually. So I don't think it's that big a deal.
big
we are fitted. Dun, da, 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 dun, da, da, da. Now we've got some painting to do. Might as well get that done. We're going to use, what we're going to use, and where is it? Oh yeah, the little tin. The little tin of hammer, rustins, not hammerite. Rustins, painting it black stuff. The paintbrushes go. And after this, I will put it to one side, and then we'll clean up. Ready for, put it to one side, ready for the next bit, which will be putting the saddles back on, double checking the action. No, sorry, once I've painted this, I'm going to connect up around the cavities, because they don't connect. Well, they might connect to each other. I might not need to run. I might not need to run little wires everywhere, which is good, except into the first cavity. That's probably the only one. I'll get that done. I've gone on to another podcast. Okay, let's just do it.
Where do you stand, Rory? I'm guessing you're going to be, they're ours, we keep them. Where do you stand?
If I go to another program, I'm going to end up having to, I'll never be able to use this ever, but I'm probably just better off taking stills at the moment.
First thing, just quick background. So these rocks made sculptures that were on the face of the Parthenon, the great capital.
The Parthenon marbles.
And when Greece was a province, the Ottoman Empire, ruled by, from Istanbul by the Turks since the Middle Ages. Lord Eldon, British aristocrat, a lot of money.
He bought them.
Came in.
What was his title? Ambassador Extraordinary and Minister Plenipotentiary of His Britannic Majesty to the Sublime Court of Selim III, Sultan of Turkey.
Very good. So he was the big ambassador of the Ottoman Empire, and then came over and decided, and this was part of the whole tradition of the Southern Renaissance, of getting hold of antiquities and bringing them home. But he pulled off the most extraordinary thing, which is that he convinced the Turkish government to allow him to buy the Elgin marbles from them, to get some sort of paperwork or by and took them back to Britain.
About which there continues to be huge dispute.
And even at the
About the validity of the
and even at the time, there was huge dispute. So the kind of people that would impress you, sort of Byron and Shelley and Fred Knight,
What about those
they were very, very. Let's go to quote about that.
So Byron wrote, dull is the eye that will not look to see that by walls defaced by moulding of shrines removed by British hands, which it had best behoved to guard those relics ne'er to be restored. Cursed be the hour when from their isle they rode, and once again thy hapless bosom gored, and snatched
Blimey.
thy shrinking gods to northern climes of horde.
Yep, there we are. So that's
Look at
absolutely
this.
right. So
It's so annoying. Little tiny
so I guess the
spots.
obvious question
You're going to have to take them, wipe them clean afterwards with
with
liquid.
all over the world.
It's just incredible. It's almost impossible to use this stuff without it spitting somewhere.
And
That's if you use a brush, of course.
Museum in New York, the Loom, etc. The Loom has one Mona Lisa, which the Italians could well say they'd like back, and then this, that, and the other. Is of course the question when you begin with self-defense, and maybe it's now. Benin bronzes are on their way back. There's big moves to the DNA, I think, to return some Mandalay treasures, but I think they've already begun that, and there's been returns also to Ethiopia. Strong discussions about returns to Ethiopia.
And George Osborne, currently at Honcho British Museum, seemed broadly sympathetic to doing something.
Yeah, his compromise is a sort of loan program where technically they're only on loan to Greeks, and the Greeks send us some antiquities on loan. But
this up first. What rubbish focus you've got. Jeez. Can't use anything. I'm going to need a set of sacrificial strings for this setup next. I don't really know where I'm going to get them from. I've got a set of 10s, I'll use those. Harley Benton 10s. Right, so that's that. What I'm going to do is turn it over, take this out of the way.
When it actually came to the decision to be made, I think they decided to do things which you pointed out were probably less headline catching. So allowing to put off capital investment, which is a good thing, it's great because it encourages companies to invest more in plant machinery.
Just get that.
They've also
Get this done again.
national insurance, which is also a good way
Ah.
of addressing taxes.
It's better than the cutting the basic rate.
Better than the basic rate of tax.
Because it basically helps working people as opposed to
Exactly.
rich pensioners.
Exactly. And then they've also upgraded benefits. So I think the details of it, if they were going to make a big decision to do that, are not bad. And Labour have broadly speaking endorsed it, and they haven't actually distanced themselves from it. But that again may be political.
Well, I think it is political, and it's also rather strange because you now go into the general election where
Damn it,
Brexit,
a hole here, and it goes all the way through.
the ODR
So we have crap on the other side, which we don't want.
If we haven't left the European Union, that's not going to be part of the election debate. Both sides would seem to be saying. And now it would seem that the massive spending cuts, which are locked in, there's a splendid graphic which you put in the newsletter, which I think the Institute of Fiscal Studies did, where it shows the tax, the money that is being used to pay for these tax cuts in the coming years, is almost directly correlates with the spending cuts there are going to have to be.
Yeah.
So he's basically locked in spending cuts.
Yeah.
And so, for example,
But locked in the Tory camp. So the challenge
Correct.
is are they going to go along with
so correct. So
so austerity?
so if they're not, and by the way, it's austerity that is almost on the par with Osborne's austerity. So you've got your protected budget.
Damn it.
So for example, you've got a local
Don't bloody well want.
Tory and Labour really is essentially saying they are pretty much cut to the bone already, and they're looking at huge cuts after the next election. You've got prisons,
Down, down, down.
yeah, double-digit cuts. You've got cuts into virtually every service apart from probably health and probably education. And I saw an astonishing stat. So in 2000, year 2000, the share of overall public spending that went on health and social care was 26%. 2010, 32. Today, 40. 2028, the lead plans, 45%. So we're protecting health. And by the way, we've now got this consultant failure, which is not included.
Horrible material. I should never have done this like that, like this.
Will add something like an additional 2% to government's money GDP over a period. So it's huge in the government budget. Now, Tim Shepherd, who's Summit manager, has written an article which might be friend and educate saying that it's almost inevitable that there will be more tax cuts in this budget. David is very unlikely, and points to this is because actually, if you look at the forecast, the finance sector is more pressure than what we understand, because traditionally every year the government is supposed to put up 2 by 5% plus inflation. And the potential sounds like every year that comes up, which means the government has to find at least £5 billion in order to keep the cap on fuel. So
He's also set a precedent with alcohol in this one by freezing that. And you saying that you think he went to, he sort of tried to project a bit of crowd pleasing, it's called, before the budget. I still think he's trying to use that first, because the general judgment of the serious economists, if you look at the IFS and Revolution Foundation, some of the others that you go to,
This fucking thing. Oh my God.
Paul Johnson was pretty sober in his analysis. He said, you know, none of these figures are basis that's made up. And somebody
That's
else
the problem, you see. You clean it and then it pulls it out again. As you, there you go, like so. Fucking hell. I think we need to get that dried up. So now I've got 2 blobs of it on this side because it's got it on the red thing.
But that then allows the to go into the election talk about labour.
in my view, it's quite hard to do that when even on this budget, even on this sort of
It's
the tax
lethal, this stuff.
is higher than it's been at any time since the late 1940s. So even though, I mean, it's only because we've got these
Come on. Mm.
It was very interesting to me how punks in the statement project themselves with an awful lot of confidence and brio, but it didn't last very long. And by the time they were doing this, touring the studios later in the day, they were very much in the back foot. Now, Labour, I think, have to get themselves in a position where the public feel an understanding of how technical the conditions are and have the belief that Labour will make better choices. Now, would it be sensible to go into elections saying we're going to tax more, we're going to borrow more, so that we spend more? I think that's quite a difficult thing to do politically. But I do think there's something unreal about the fact that we're going into an election where neither Brexit nor projected massive cuts in public spending are really going to be on the agenda because we're at a part of this saying
If Labour presumably will tax by £30 to £50 billion a year, or if it's to make a real impact on things that constitute on public services and growth expectations about that. But at the same time, Rachel Reeves
There's a little mark there that we'll take off later. Just annoying. I mean, I should have thought about it more. It's a hideous material. It's great if you've not already cut holes. I forgot that part of it. But if you cut holes already, it has this horrible habit of sneaking through and filthing up everything. Right, just continue drying this off.
In ever where disposable income is lower at the end of the beginning, right? And this is their big idea: is this expensing thing and
I need to now
paid for.
scrape this back because this is where the TruOil builds up. It prevents the
So when a government reaches that
cavity cover going back on.
for God's sake, we just have a general election. And the reason they're hanging on, rather than going to the general election, which they probably look at the polls that they're going to lose, is actually a kind of crash and burn to try to lay back to Labour and to, if Labour do get into power, screw them over so that they probably won't one term. And I think that is part now of some of the Conservatives thinking.
So the problem I think there is public right is when you explain what laying traps means. You're challenging Labour to tell you what their position is and other people do it by just going along with what the Tories are saying.
But I think this notion that the government has given up on governing, I think it's false.
Right? I'm not sure they've given up on governing, and I think that was given up hand right. I think a lot of the things they did were smart, thoughtful, but the overall picture, as you say, is catastrophic. I think the big problem for the Tories is not Jeremy Hunt's budget. The big problem for the Tories is Liz Truss and constituent. I think that they are not going to be able to recover from that blow to their economic credibility. That they can do all they want to seem from Jeremy Hunt, steady as you go, democratic, but they've lost the ability to be a state of hands, which is what Truss was doing.
So if you look at the OBR, growth forecast correction.
The problem with these is once you've sanded them down, you lose depth on this, on the,
Increased inflation.
you lose depth on the cavity cover thing. So when you come to put the plate back on, it doesn't really fit the way it did. So it's kind of sticks up a little bit. Now I think this needs to come off now. It's got a cover over here that's been on for since the factory. We'll get rid of that.
Where they're going to get growth from either. No idea where they're going to get growth from.
Well, they've come up with this sort of, talk about planning and all this sort of stuff. And by the way, Rory, on planning, on planning,
Just get it to work.
and on NIMBYism, which we agree is a big thing. Now, I got sent something from one of your former constituents who wants to know whether you stand by something you did in 2014. Okay, Rory, well, this is from your own website. Rory welcomes decision to block wind turbine. And you launched, Rory, I cannot believe you did this. You launched something called Cumbria Wind Watch to stop wind turbines.
Rory.
100%. And I'll defend it to the hilt.
Go on then.
Because our income in Cumbria is from tourism. This is a national park area. Our landscape is very precious, and it is catastrophic.
But where
But
the wind turbine? You've got a lot of wind up there.
We do have wind. We do have wind. But I think it's a very, very cool.
Well, we'll leave that for a minute.
The other 50 years, they've destroyed the landscape.
Right, I think we're going to put the lid on that
We're bringing in
black
7.5 billion
mush.
a year. The tourism economy of 2.5 billion pounds a year.
But there is this classic, don't you think that every area of the country can say
NIMBY.
something good about their area?
NIMBY.
Even Stockton, the famous, what did he call it?
Yeah, I get back to James Cleverly on stock. Yeah.
Have you ever called another human being shit? Do you know if anybody who's ever called another human being shit?
Sounds like a place reference, not a person reference.
It certainly does.
Now, on NIMBYism, and your good challenge to me, I think it's a good challenge to Hohner. Was a question of building houses before the 20th century.
There's a reason why, Rory. There's a reason why.
Welcome back to the restaurant
Right.
with me, Rory.
So this is that. Let's put this out of the way while it dries that a bit more.
Very good. And Alistair,
Now,
yes.
what we're going to do,
So,
that's done.
one thing, Alistair, that I do
That
like,
wet there. Let's
is
blow
to
some
encourage people
air in there.
on some of our leading episodes, which are these interviews that we have done with world leaders, with armed
Correct. So I think.
What am I trying to do now? What am I trying to do now? Look at this, 1 hour and 20 minutes I've been going on this. Right, there's that one, that goes back in there. Sounds okay. So we're going to need, some point very soon, we're going to need to
We did lots of Northern
set this up. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put some strings on and let's concentrate on the setup. So here we go. Let's start with these and we'll put a little bit of grease on.
When the call's being made on the attack on the Sunday night, etc., etc. So give it a go.
Excellent. Now, should we talk a little bit about Mr. Wilders in Holland, Mr. Millet,
Mr. Wilders.
Tina, and also these shopping rights in Dublin? Where do you want to start with all that?
Well, let's start with the Netherlands. So, and the victory, basically, of Geert Wilders.
Geert Wilders.
Extraordinary organisation, which isn't quite a political party, called the PVV, has just taken the largest amount of seats by a big margin. So, just a little introduction.
Still a relatively small proportion.
Just going to take all of these
Yeah, so just an introduction
actions
to the
down to
Dutch
nothing.
electoral system, because it's fascinating. I mean, it is pure proportional. So 150 seats. If you can get 150 vote, 0.8%, right? You get a seat. And it has been run by coalition governments almost forever. And it's been a very, very rigid system. Geert Wilders is famous for being the longest serving member of the Dutch Parliament, but he's only been in since 1998. And this is partly my friend Marnix Armand, who teaches at Yale, points out, because being a Dutch politician is serving our peace and been in since 98 gives you a sense of it. And the reason it's so boring is that everything is run on a party-less system. So much so that Marnix jokes that you might as well just have one person representing the party in Parliament, because there's absolutely no restriction on the party.
Does it make you less proportional representation?
Well, I think definitely this form is bizarre, really bizarre. And they sign coalition agreements where they have, over the last few coalitions, specified every single law that they have passed. So there's actually literally no time for to talk. If you're in the government, you vote with every law that was agreed 3 years earlier, and if you're in the opposition, you vote against it.
Yeah, the reason we have this election is because that system broke down under the last coalition.
And it breaks down when a surprise happens. If something that wasn't in the agreement happens, suddenly it breaks down. So Holland, moving forward, has gone through, I guess, what's happening with lots of European countries. We talked about it in France. It, broadly speaking, had three big parties. Had a Labour Party, a Liberal Party, which is the party whose presence has been for the last 4 elections, and it had a Christian Democrat Party. And these three parties sort of dominated Dutch politics for a long time, and then it began to fall apart. And the left, in particular, in the Netherlands, has really collapsed. If you put together all the left-wing votes in Parliament, they're only about a third of the seats. And that's largely because the traditional manual has
That's that.
just as they basically preserved
Now, where are my tens? Ah, my tens. Here are my tens. Lemons coming. Tens will do for the setup part of things.
Instead of which, those votes become to go towards far right parties, of which, yeah,
I think he's right with Philip on the far right, but he started out as an advisor to Rutte, the outgoing Prime Minister. And it was when Rutte started to talk about supporting Turkish he's been around, as you say, for a very long time.
Right. See how these fit on the end.
I think he looked utterly stunned on the night of the election. And I think there's a warning here for all parties that are way ahead in the polls. Because it's interesting how many young people voted for, and also how many people voted for didn't vote for. And I suspect a lot of people who told promises they were going to vote for somebody else. But the other thing that happened is that the Rutte's successor, who's a woman from Turkish immigrant background, she became the first of those sort of mainstream party leaders to say, well, yeah, maybe we could do some sort of arrangement in the Conservative Party, which, in a sense, I think, pushed people who maybe were a bit reluctant to vote for Wilders to think, oh, well, it can't be that bad. And I think that was a huge mistake by her. Now, we got a very interesting message from my friend Jan Arden Fjortoft, who's a former Norwegian footballer, now commentator. And he said he'd like to hear his favourite podcast, talking about why we think, what are the positive reasons that people vote for Wilders in the left. And I've been trying to really hard to think of it. And the only thing I can really think of, I think a lot of it is a protest vote. But I think if you look at Trump, make America great again, I think they've somehow managed to capture alongside this vote for us against them a sense almost of optimism, provided you stick within your own culture and your own barriers.
which was true actually, of course, of Boris Johnson, because he, put his many that in the state, rejected British optimism. And that sense to get stuff done. And the problem, of course, always with the centre, is this has been running things since the, I guess, the 90s. It always gave the impression of defending the status quo. And defending the status quo often involves it being difficult. We can't really do this, we can't really get immigration under control, we're not allowed to do that. And so politicians who say nonsense to that, we can change things, are really important. And head builders is of course not the first to do So Bill Fortune, very different figure from Headless. He was much, much more intellectual, much more flamboyant, very open, again, celebrating his sexuality, as well as being radically anti-Muslim. And that gives you a sense of how different Dutch populism is to American populism. So there's no space in Dutch politics, for example, the way there is in the US, for being anti-Bush or taking on LGBTQ issues.
But you do have that in some of these, like Orban, part of his shtick is very much in the social conservative.
It largely has well, again, Fortune. Again,
Right, there we go. For fitting strings, here we have it. We get the first string. We pull right the way down to the end, about a centimetre past the wood.
And there seems to be Holland is its dominant culture is aggressive.
Yep. Then we put in our thing. Ta-da. Or we can use the, we could use the tuning knob if we wanted to. So I say push the string all the way through. Probably can't see very well, but it's running along nicely. And it will just tighten it up there. Now we're too low at the moment, so first thing I will do, if I need to slack it off, I'll do this with the tuning knob. The first thing I'll do is I will wind in the action and lift that to where I want it. I'll leave it, I'm not going to lock it yet. So I grab the B string and do the same. Pull through a centimetre past the end. Spare bits. Ah, Christ, stabbed myself, as you do. Find the hole in the barrel, push it all the way through and let it lock off, and then hold it tight with the other hand until it all winds on. There we go. G.
Policy in Ukraine can start to shift, and also some of the policy on budgeting, particularly at the moment where Germany
Dropped on the floor, it's okay.
due to the constitutional court.
So you notice I'm doing the setup now before I put any of the pickups or anything back in. So we get the, what I call the geometric setup done with a bare shell of the guitar first. D. Again, past the end, snip. Now with this one, oh God, of course I've got blood on my finger from where I stabbed it. With the wound strings, push them right through till you see the string emerge, and then pull it back until it just starts to disappear, and hold it and then lock it as it comes round. Oh, now it's come off the end, so you can go down the other end and gently poke it through so it hooks. This little rubber thing is only a slight fixing thing, it doesn't really hold it. You have to keep pressure on it. The A, past the end.
Is a very experienced politician. Maybe he proved us wrong on that. But I think
all the way through, back a bit, hook it up, lock it on. And finally, these I've got to say, these, what do you call them, Harley Benton strings are not good for this kind of guitar because the wound bit comes up over the 0 fret, almost does, and you have to bend it out of the way like I've just done. I'm not sure whether that'll actually stay out of the way or not. We'll try. Barely. That should play okay. They're not great strings for that. The Dario seemed to work. The Hohner and Steinberger, in my opinion, made the space between the 0 fret and the anchor point of the strings too short. So it, by definition, because of the wound bit near the ball comes up over dangerously over the top there. It's just avoided it on this one. Okay, but the Dario seemed better than that. Better than that. Now, having done what I wanted to get the strings on, now we can tighten these up a little bit. Now I don't want them totally tight, I just want them tight enough to do some action setting. So we get the correct one of these, and we're going to wind this one in until we get an action that's suitable, and then we're going to wind this one in until we get an action that's suitable as well. Then we're going to wind this one in. Now I'm doing it all by eye for a minute. That one's quite far in, but we'll come back to it and I'll do adjustments by measure. So this should, according to that, all be at the right height. But if I zoom out while I'm doing the sort of fine tuning, just gonna measure these now. Okay, so we've got 1 mil there. So we should get to 1.5.
People like you and I possibly
A little bit over.
have fed into this by the constant use of the phrase populism.
Okay, 1.2.
And I have in the past have worried about this because populism sounds quite popular. It's like, you know, if you're a populist, that means you do things to please the people.
1.2-ish, 1.3-ish.
What he's thinking, his argument is that we should, the far
Oops,
right
missing it.
is a dangerous political force, and that the mainstream has done
Oops,
far
too
too
high.
much to pander to it rather than challenge it. And I think that's what I was saying perhaps about the leader of Rutta's party when she
About right.
started to say, yeah, maybe. And when we talk about
Slightly high.
these people have legitimate concerns, which for a lot of people is just racism. So I think that
Five.
we'll put it in the newsletter.
Okay.
It's a very interesting.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten the strings up to pitch
That actually we should
using the
see them coming.
tuning knob.
And in fact, we have seen them coming, but haven't worked out how to handle them.
One of the things that you just talked about in transition is this, what they call livelihood security in the Netherlands, which is their housing prices. And it's partly because they have agreed up to
Okay, that's about
this
in
is
pitch.
pollution. They're not, many young people now live with their parents or in camper vans, and of course very unfair in the right to blame asylum seekers for living in houses in housing. Very familiar story.
Yeah.
The litmus test, I think, really for all of this is going to be the French elections, because Marine Le Pen is not going to compromise social democracy in the way that people like Hillary do. So the downside is when people are electoral of the PR system is that these people get into power. The upside is that they're then forced to do a lot of compromises. If Le Pen manages to become president, she has in front of us astonishing.
You get as Macron's fan, it can be.
Okay, so that's a basic tuning.
But I guess
Now I'm I'm going to go back through here
the presidential
for the height.
then, you know, the National Assembly's
Good.
going to shift in certain directions.
Good.
By the way, when I saw Francois
Fraction
Hollande,
low.
he said
Now I'm going to use the newer one now
he
because
said,
this
"What
is,
did weather
we're under pressure,
Brexit,
so I want to
Britain has
raise this, but I don't want to risk rounding off the
but the rest of
thingies.
Europe is yet
This one's
to
slightly
reject it."
high.
Now I heard on the
Now sometimes when you undo it,
Fraser Nelson
you have to
Spectator
push back
saying
to
the
get
great thing about
it to
Britain is
go
that
backwards or downwards. That's good.
in
That's
with
good.
representation in Parliament, and I think that is rather to overlook
that's a bit
the
high now.
current government. I think we have a populist government, and I actually think Sunak is becoming in his own way as populist as Johnson.
But so I'm going to challenge that. I don't think he's anything like as populist as Johnson. I think and I don't think
Populist as Johnson.
nothing like what Le Pen.
Ian Braverman's similar.
No. I
Ian Braverman's like
No,
Le Pen.
I think the challenge there. I'm just about to come on to that. I agree with you that the real question is what do the Conservatives do after the election.
Fiddly.
And I also agree that if they perform particularly bad in the election, it will almost certainly be because they're flirting far too much with the populace right
Okay.
now.
And that's
Tune it
the
again.
argument that Bath is making.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll give it a little bit of a
But I
pull.
also think Hollande is onto something. I think compared to Bill Bills and Le Pen and Maloney, and actually,
That's Sweden and Finland.
yeah, no,
Now
and
we'll
it's
tune it
also
again.
not just a question about the Conservative Party. It's also something very interesting about the Labour movement, because we've talked about how the left has collapsed all over Europe, lost its working class voters, and in cases like Holland or in Israel, the left has all but disappeared fairly, but whereas actually in Britain, the traditional left in the form of Labour is holding up. So Britain does seem to be a bit of an exception, but that's always worrying because the long-term trends are the same in Britain as they are in Europe and the United States. And I think we may just be delaying this now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Ireland and Dublin. I did a bit of pedantry the other day, Rory. I was interviewed on a podcast which was presented by Micheál Martin, former Taoiseach, now the Foreign Minister in the Irish government. And he actually asked me on to talk about my book, Populism, Polarisation Post Truth. He asked me before riots, by the time we did the interview,
So
it was in the middle of these riots in Dublin.
that's everything
Well,
working for now. Next step will be to do the fret leveling, precision fret leveling, and we shall get ready to do that now. We'll have distills from that. Why not?
Correct.
Why?
I don't know.
And then the news.
Ah, what I didn't check was the relief in the neck.
Interesting, I think he called himself Danny Boy on social media. But he did a minute by minute
Very flat.
of the messages that were going out from these far right groups, including in Britain, including in different parts of Europe. So the word went around straight away that this is immigrant who's killing our people, Ireland for the Irish, Ireland first, and then people on the far right in Ireland with the following, essentially saying to people, come out, without. They obviously stay just the right side of the road, but essentially urging people to fight. And usually there's not houses being set on fire, police officers being attacked, and all based on this a lack of knowledge, deliberate disinformation about what had actually happened.
Because we were there together. It seems to have a very, from an outsider's point of view, a very mature, successful, moderate government. It's had an amazing.
I'm trying to think, did I actually level this before? Have I just forgotten it? Knowing my luck, I would probably, I know I've done the 0 fret, but that's because I had to prepare it. I'm going to very, very lightly do this because it seems like it's pretty good actually as it is. So we shall see.
Well, Micheál Martin said in
Stay there.
it's always been there. It's always been there, and he admitted that kind of immigration was for some of these people was a real problem. Now the other thing you notice when you're in Dublin, as opposed to say being here in London or any of the big cities in the UK, it's remarkably white. You kind of, if you see non-white people, you tend to notice them. So the fact that could happen in those circumstances, And by the way, my favourite part of the whole horrible episode was the fact that the guy who stepped in and risked his own life to try and sort this thing all out was a Brazilian delivery driver. And the good Irish people have now been setting up tons of funds for him to become, hopefully, a very wealthy delivery driver. But I think it just
Okay,
goes to
so
show that, as you say, even in countries that
can't,
are
have we done this bit already?
I've got a very
I'm
romantic attachment
confused,
to
man.
my experience of Ireland. It's through the peace process, it's through lots of sort of nice trips there and lovely people that I know. So it did come as a genuine shock. But I also think that both Michal and Leo Varadkar made a very, very good response to it. He wasn't doing what that University said. He really was totally clear about these people were not Scottish Ireland, do not represent Ireland there. You know, he wasn't doing that thing of, you know, we understand religious concerns and all that. He wasn't. I want a little bit more of that kind of
No, kind of.
Where's my brush gone? I've lost it. This is really annoying.
Units in the military seem to have tried to seek balance. The current president himself was a brigadier involved in the military in the 1990s, but is now a democratically elected president. Syria is suffering many problems across Africa, and huge inflation, huge hardship, massive unemployment, poverty. But the reason why it's worth looking at is it's a different kind of landscape from where the Syria is west coast.
Most annoying.
It's again an example of the real fragility, and that's a fascinating thing that the current president of Syria gave Al Jazeera. Maybe not worth watching the whole thing, but it is amazing the way
I've lost my eyeballs here. I can't see what I need to see.
Syria.
Okay.
About 15 minutes through his challenge on his own participation in coups, and he said, "Oh yes, well the coup that I did in 1990 was a good coup because you know this government is corrupt." And then, all the same, they're trying to coup d'etat him. Anyway, that then brings us back to Sudan. Nobody.
Well, just on Sierra Leone though, the part of the tension that's there is the fact that
I need a
people
block that's not
were
quite
worried about how
as
he would
wide
be
as
elected.
that.
So it's not just that he was involved in a previous
Do
coup,
this.
it's just that there's a lot of concern about whether he's kind of legitimate.
Which is true, and this is
Yeah.
the sad truth. We talked about thin democracy before. We were understandably so excited by the movement of the world towards democratic elections in the 1920s. But for many people, the fact that they are don't really forget this alternative democratic
Well, that's one to watch. And the other one I think we briefly should just talk about. We talked last week about Ukraine. People are worrying that Ukraine is being forgotten with all that's going on in the Middle East. But Sudan is utterly horrific what's happening there now. And we talked before about this civil war between the armed forces, the government, and these rapid support forces. But it's now, there was again, Al Jazeera, there was a report the other day about this violence in Darfur that was horrific to watch, and interviews with people describing what had happened to them and it was honestly as bad as anything that we've seen coming out of Israel and Gaza, and yet it's almost as if the world's media can't cope with more than one big thing at a time.
So quick reminder on Sudan. The long-standing president was toppled in a coup, government, and then two big generals ended up fighting for the traditional military program over time. And against it is the plan of Sudan who is associated with a very disturbed group which emerged in 2000 called the Janjaweed militia.
Janjaweed.
Primarily more nomadic, pastoral groups who spent on the
MU.
groups in Darfur on these attacks, which people will remember, was the great human rights atrocities championed by people like George Clooney in the 2000s. And now the price spread out. Again, we've got over 5
Good, good.
people, 1.2
All good.
pushed across the border, many tens of thousands killed. And again, a story that we have told when we have been analysing Libya, for example, of proxy wars, because part of this is the United Arab Emirates. So this now was used by the UAE to fight Sudan. They thought about it, bring over Sudan and fight for them. And yet, part of that was then make gold concessions. Very rich man runs the companies out of Dubai. UAE was then given a $1.5 billion loan to Chad. To put that in context, the entire budget of Chad a year is less than $1 billion. And in return, we allowed to set up a base on the Sudan border, which has a sort of a hospital in it for public show, but with very few patients, but is basically a supply base for landing weapons, which are then moved over to Meti to back his side in the war against the Sudanese military.
Were the Wagner group not involved in that as well?
Yes.
The Wagner
it was.
also supported Meti and also brought the weapons into Lansing. So this is really, really upsetting, obviously, for the US, UK, who are politically called the Quad with Saudi, which is supposed to be bringing, and UAE, which is supposed to be bringing peace. So UAE, this alliance of peace, is actually funneling weapons. One of the sides just as they funneling weapons into Libya.
So meanwhile, the nation is
it does feel at times much more not just also 19th century politics, where you have a dozen countries interfering in other states, playing these sort of complicated games. And in the case of UAE, it's partly about them putting a lot of money together and mines and cargo, they're building ports all the way along the Red Sea coast. They're making huge
Remember now.
That is the only place where I've seen significant coverage arising in this situation. And the other thing, I was actually channel hopping the other day, and Fiona came in while I was watching the Al Jazeera coverage of what's happening in the Middle East. And she made the point that it's you get a completely different picture to what you get watching. I would say much of our news, I mean, it's horrific a lot of the time, it's actually quite sanitized.
Yeah.
So when you look at the stuff that you see, you might not see.
I never really had spoken with the interview with this very because the interviewer is much, much more blunt about what he remembers of seeing the atrocities in Syria. Little shout out to Declan Walsh, who's a very good British, I guess, for the New York Times, who did a great reporting on the UAE. And the New York Times still classifies the major investigation. They use satellite imagery to compare the footprint of the UAE bases and the bases that are built in Libya. They then use air trackers to follow in every plane. It's extraordinary, it's almost like intelligence.
Well, in the New York Times, the intelligence
all looking good. Leveled, done. Time to remove and clean up. We're on 2 hours. Okay, we won't bother filming the rest.